Ooh, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Big Hero Chris back at you with another one. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, give me a thumbs up, ring the notification bell, hit me up on Twitter, TikTok, the community post. You already know the vibes, and I'm back at you with some AEW Dynamite shenanigans, kind of a review, me just giving my general consensus, my general thoughts on this week's episode of AEW Dynamite. And I know the vibes around the internet wrestling community, the YouTube wrestling community, just the wrestling community in general is kind of just to, bag on AEW, especially with the Dynasty and the way that show ended with the Death Riders still being on top. Jon Moxley still is your AEW champion, and the return of the Young Bucks. And it was kind of like, well, what do we do here? Like, a lot of people were throwing their hands up with AEW. A lot of people were just flat out saying that they're done with AEW. A whole lot of crying and screaming and think pieces and a whole lot of that going on. And I can't lie to you, man. I was kind of like, that ending at Dynasty didn't leave a sour taste in my mouth, but I'm not really ready to throw in the towel with AEW. And on top of that, I'm like, all right, so you have this whole thing with the Young Bucks and the Death Riders, so I can at least see where this is going. Like, I can at least give them a chance just to, give some type of explanation just to see what the vibes are. And a lot of people were thinking that, the Young Bucks and the Death Riders were in cahoots, that the Young Bucks actually were the ones that brought in the Death Riders, lead into this whole takeover storyline with AEW. But it turns out that wasn't the case. So this week's episode of Dynamite starts off with the Death Riders promo, Jon Moxley talking, kind of like the Death Riders used to do when this whole shindig first started. It would be a Jon Moxley promo, and he would just say a whole bunch of gibberish and words and whatnot. But this kind of felt more akin to the old school Death Riders promo, where he was talking about how, the AEW locker room wasn't worthy of seeing the championship and beating Jon Moxley, and the Death Riders are great and Wu-Tang is the greatest and blah, blah, blah. But one thing that definitely stood out to me was the fact that Jon Moxley said to the Young Bucks, listen, you guys are playing a game. You don't even know what you're playing at. You're trying to play chess and you don't know what kind of pieces you have on the board. And that kind of says to me that the Young Bucks and the Death Riders are not in cahoots. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So then this led to the opening match between Shibata and Jon Moxley. And it was what it was. I mean, it wasn't long. It wasn't really too much to the match. Jon Moxley ended up getting the win. And then after the match, the Young Bucks come out. So now you have the Young Bucks trying to butter up the Death Riders. And the Young Bucks pretty much said in their explanation that the reason they came out at Dynasty and cost Swerve the championship is for Hangman, because they know how much Hangman hates Swerve, and they know that, Hangman doesn't want Swerve to be the champion. And, between the last time the Young Bucks were here and now, a lot has kind of changed. It kind of looks like Hangman's leaning towards becoming a babyface again. It's looking like Hangman and Swerve are kind of on the road to not really liking each other, but kind of coexisting, and like that hatred is kind of going away. But on top of that, the Young Bucks were talking about how the Death Riders and the Young Bucks could be a powerful team up, you know what I'm saying? And the Young Bucks were saying that they admired what the Death Riders are doing, how they took over the company, how they have the AEW championship, and that's all things that the EVPs couldn't do. So could you imagine how powerful the Death Riders and the Young Bucks would be together? And I'm like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. So as the Young Bucks are talking, Kenny Omega comes out. So I kind of lean forward in my chair a little bit, because this is the first time we've seen Kenny and the Young Bucks in the same place at the same time since the EVPs attacked Kenny last year, right? And Kenny cuts a promo and he says, without Kenny, the Young Bucks have been kind of leaving AEW in a messed up place and there are references to Dookie and cooking, and it was a promo. So as Kenny is talking, he says, you know what, I don't want no more of this. I just want to fight. So he gets in the ring to fight the Young Bucks, and then Okada comes out. And then as the EVPs are about to attack Kenny, Swerve comes out to make the save. So this kind of tells me where this is all going. It's looking like with Double or Nothing right around the corner, you have the Young Bucks making their return. They're linking up with Okada once again. It is going to be an Anarchy in the Arena match. I'm thinking it's going to be the Young Bucks, Okada, maybe Jack Perry, and maybe somebody else taking on Swerve, Kenny Omega, and Hangman. Because what I think is going to happen is you're going to have Hangman, kind of make a choice. And he's going to be like, listen, I didn't want your help. Me and Swerve got our own situation, but we're going to figure that out on our own. And I didn't need your help to do this. And I think the wild card is going to end up being Jack Perry, which I'm not really over the moon about, but I'm kind of making peace with that being the move already. So, there's that. And all this leads us to the next match between Swerve and Pac. Now, during the match, it looked like Pac got injured. So, prayers up for Pac. Hopefully this injury is not too severe. Hopefully it's not that big of an injury. Hopefully it was just, maybe he's hurt but not really injured. But so, prayers up for Pac. But yeah. And then later in the show, you had a backstage segment between Prince Nana and Hangman. And Hangman pretty much tells Prince Nana, listen, the mission is still the same. I'm going after the AEW championship. I'm going to win this Owen Hart tournament. And if Swerve gets in my way, we can pick up where we left off. And as Hangman is trying to leave, Prince Nana says, listen, there's something I've been meaning to tell you for like a year now. And it looks like he was trying to apologize. And Hangman's like, So, yeah, like I said, it looks like we're continuing the redemption arc of Hangman. And I think it's not going to really be him, tagging with Swerve because they're friends now. It's going to be like can they coexist type deal. So, and like I said, it's going to lead to Anarchy in the Arena. So this whole situation with the Death Riders and the EVPs and Swerve and Hangman, I'm kind of hot and cold on it because I see where this is going. So hopefully they can pick this story up a little bit. Also with the involvement of the Ops. So you go to the main event and this is the Ops taking on Wheeler and Claudio. And the match was okay. It was an okay match. There were shenanigans that took place. The Ops actually won. And then after the match, the Death Riders came out and attacked everybody. They beat up Hook. And Samoa Joe gets on the mic and says he wants to challenge the Death Riders for the Trios title. So, good for them. Good for all of them. I don't know. But as far as the rest of Dynamite, man, it was an okay show. Nothing really too spectacular. And outside of the whole Death Riders BS and, the thing with Swerve, this didn't really feel like a follow-up from Dynasty at all. You had this 8-man tag team match, which was a lot of fun. It was a fun match. And it was for, the winner of the match got $400,000. It was Team Ricochet taking on Team Mark Briscoe. And the babyfaces ended up getting the win, The crowd was making fun of Ricochet for being bald. And Ricochet got slapped upside the head by Will Ospreay, Mike Bailey, Mark Briscoe, and Kevin Knight. So that was pretty funny. So, that was a pretty fun match. You had the follow-up of the Hurt Syndicate and MJF. The Hurt Syndicate had a celebration for them winning the tag team titles. MJF comes out. He feels like he's in the Hurt Syndicate now. Bobby Lashley's like, no, I don't think so. So it's kind of giving me honorary Uso thing where you have Bobby Lashley being the Jey Uso role, Shelton Benjamin kind of being the Jimmy Uso, and MVP just being MVP. But it's entertaining. It's looking like MJF trying to wear down the Hurt Syndicate so he can join. Will he join? I don't know. At first I kind of didn't want to see it, but I'm like, they might be onto something, so we just gotta wait and see where that goes. Chris Statlander beat Thunder Rosa, so she's going on to the next round. Megan Bayne says she's going to continue to dominate the women's division, so hopefully they keep that momentum going up with her. There's been a lot of injuries going on in wrestling. I think Brian Cage and Mark Davis are injured, so Don Callis said there's openings in the Don Callis family, so we'll see who ends up joining the Don Callis family in the future. So yeah, Dynamite was an okay show. It wasn't over the moon. It wasn't spectacular. It wasn't even all that good of a follow-up show for Dynasty, but I had fun. And with this whole build to Double or Nothing and the eventual build to All In, and this whole, on tournament and the possible return of Jack Perry, we'll see. But with that being said, guys, what did you think of this week's episode of Dynamite? What do you think about this whole Death Riders, Swerve, EVP, possible Anarchy in the Arena build up? Let me know in the comment section below. Of course, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You guys take care. Peace. I'm out. Peace.